Too many companies are worried about their competition. And all they're doing is playing a zero-sum game. I don't want you worrying about your competition. I want you creating. Let me give you an example. In the late 90s, I was told by my colleagues, you got to go to Chicago. There's a sales and marketing conference. And you're going to do it for free and pay your own way over there. But there's going to be so many decision makers there that you'll get so much business. And I started dreaming all these dollar bills flying out of the air after I get done. And they said, bring 200 handouts. And I get into this big ballroom set for 200 people, and there's only 20 people in the room. My heart started sinking. And before I got into that deep depression, I said, hey, what's your purpose here? My purpose was to impact his audience, so you better make sure there's 200 people there that you're looking at and give it the best you can because they're still here. A week later, my phone rang. It was John Tracy, Senior Vice President of Zomed Surgical. He said, Ron, 3 of my regional managers heard you speak in Chicago last week. He goes, we want to think about bringing you in as a keynoter. I said, okay. I said, who are you looking at? He goes, Brian Tracy. Now, Brian Tracy was on my board of directors when I was president of NSA, and I know him very well, and I tell him the story, and he laughs. But at the time, in the late 1990s, Brian Tracy had more books than I had years on this earth. All right? Was I going to compete against him in a keynote, yes or no? Absolutely not. So I asked John, I said, what's your biggest issue that you're trying to achieve in the sales meeting? And he says, you know what? We just made this brand new machine for the ear, nose, and throat surgeons. It can cut, light, and irrigate. It saves them time. But because it was so good and considered best in class, our competitor, the largest player in the field, re-engineered, and they're giving it away for free. Forcing my people to give it away for free. So the only way that we can make money is on the consumables. I said, so what do you want from me? He goes, I want that $8 billion back. I said, you know, this sounds like it's a really important issue. What if I gave you my time for free and you paid my expenses and I came down and met with you in Jacksonville so we could strategize this event? He said, yes, immediately. Always get something in return. If you're going to give something, get something in return. If you're going to give a proposal, get an appointment to review it. If they're not willing to give you something in return, don't even give it. Okay, so he was going to give me my expenses. Get down to Jacksonville. All his regional managers are there, and they're sitting beside him and me. And I looked at him and I asked him this question, the purpose question. What's your strategic intent for the meeting? There was dead silence. That night, John came up to me and goes, I'm so embarrassed. I said, why? I was embarrassed my managers couldn't answer, and I was embarrassed that I couldn't answer because, you see, what we do every year is we hold a meeting. We hire speakers, but we're never strategic. You force us to think differently than anybody else. At that moment, did I start positioning myself differently than other speakers, yes or no? Absolutely. And I said, you know, John, I can do a keynote for you, and I will do it. But I think you need more than a keynote. He goes, what do you mean? Well, there's 3 phases to adult education. The first phase is awareness. That's what a keynote does. You come in, you know, you make them agitated, you pump them up, and you get them knowing that there's a different way of doing something, and they go out. The second phase is transference of skill. This is where what you take intellectually, you put into action. That's where the breakdowns are. And the third phase is measurement. I believe not only do we have to make them aware, but we have to do a session where they can practice it so they can have the breakdowns and have the confidence to go out and do it, and then they can measure the results. So he goes, what do you recommend? So I recommend that I go into 3 different cities with these salespeople. Let me travel, visit with the surgeons. Let me have the conversation I'm going to teach them. And he goes, great. So the deal was 5 times what Brian would have ever charged for a keynote. All right? But that's because I created. I wasn't competing. I created an opportunity to solve some outcomes that he was after. And so the whole thing that I'm asking you to think about, the one word is outcomes. You see, at the end of the day, we're selling outcomes. We're not selling financial services. We're not selling speeches. We're not selling whatever product you have. It's the outcomes of what those products are meant to do.